Hello, everyone.
Oh, well, hi.
And welcome to the first day of Decoded here in Copenhagen.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm so happy to be here.
I know
Hello,
you're happy.
folks.
You've already told me so much about the Danish you had this morning. Like, you're very,
Oh my gosh.
very happy to be in Copenhagen.
Folks, open up the chat so we can maybe folks will feel me on this.
Hi, everybody.
This morning I had the best Danish of my life. No shock, but it was a hotel Danish. It's my first time in the country, so I'm really happy to be here. I'll introduce myself. My name is Lauren, and I'm on the developer relations team here at Parity, and I am so happy to be chatting with y'all today. We have a really cool schedule coming up.
We do indeed.
Go ahead and introduce yourself and say hi.
Yeah. I'm Aaron. I'm also on the DevRel team here at Parity, and hopefully some of you have seen me before streaming on these
face,
channels.
Shall we say? Yeah. Someone came up to me at the conference today and said that they are loving our streams. They've learned a lot.
Yeah, I had a guy stop me on the way over to do this. You can see I was very stressed and rushed when he this is all set
running
up.
Around with mics.
I'm not going to keep you, but I just want to say, like, I'm building on Polkadot. You're a big inspiration. I was like, oh, that's really
fun
sweet.
when someone from the chat comes into real life and they're a real person.
Yeah, we got so many chats. We got people saying hello here from like Thailand and Indonesia, Bulgaria, Washington D.C., somebody from Nigeria, Netherlands,
Amazing.
all over tuning in today.
I love it. I'm so happy. And of course, the reason we're live streaming is to have live chat. If you have questions about the conference, hopefully we'll be able to get some speakers here with us to join us to help talk about what they're going to be talking about, maybe either before their talk or afterwards. Maybe talking about the good questions that they got and favorite moments from their talks as well.
Yeah, I know there's a couple of XCM talks going on right now. We're going to hope to get some folks from XCM team on in just a little bit to come talk about those and get a teach for XCM. So if you're just tuned in to or just finished watching Keith's talk, or you're currently watching Keith's talk, and you are excited about what's coming up in XCM, then be sure to come on for our next session. We also have folks from, is it Apillion or Apollon?
Well, I think that it's Apollon, but we could certainly ask them today because they'll be on the stream in just a bit as well.
Yeah, so make sure you tune to watch them too. And we're going to have Sasha, who some of you may know from previously on Substrate Seminars, is going to be here to talk to us about all things NFTs and Asset Hub.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that as well. And so that's all going to be coming up on today. We're also going to be streaming tomorrow. So the stream is going to be going live every day after the main stage finishes. So once you've got your fill of the main stage, you've seen all the wonderful keynotes and things, then we're going to be live for the rest of the day each day, I think.
Stay tuned. More to come. I got to ask you, though, you're talking a lot about the future.
Yeah.
Let's reflect. What's been your favorite so far? What talks? What have you learned? What conversations have you had?
So
bring me to Decoded on the ground, boots on the ground, live reporting.
I had a really good team dinner last night. That's
we did have some good Indian food, but okay.
But no, my favorite things actually. It's been kind of the focus so far a lot in the opening kind of talks on really how do we go mass adoption. And that's somewhere that's an interest area of mine as well. You know, how do we improve the UX? How do we improve the UI? How do we onboard more people into the ecosystem? How do we make it easier to use? How do we improve all that kind of thing?
That was a big call to action, I would say, from Bjorn's talk, wasn't it?
It was,
he was like, let's go, let's build. Go. Come on, ecosystem. Let's do this. We know what developer experience must be better. Okay, let's build.
And not even just developer experience, like consumer experience as well. Like the fact we like Beatport coming on board now, Weeby coming on board. Like we have all these wonderful companies that now
it's so exciting.
Coming on Web3. We need to make sure that consumer experience is there too. And a big comment I saw as well is like people don't really care about the underlying stack. Like as a consumer, you're not gonna care what's underneath there. You just want a good end-to-end experience.
The developers out there, it's hard for us to hear that, but you know what? I can understand the concept that you were speaking of. I'm not sure that I get it. I get what you're saying. Ooh, I see that someone got their Decoded NFT. Have you found yours yet?
I have not got mine yet. I've been running about so much. I've not managed to clear mine yet, so I'm a little bit jealous on that, to be honest.
Yeah.
because people are saying they love Polkadot, amazing project, started to learn Rust and following Polkadot dev stream. So thank you very much for that.
I'm so excited to hear that. I personally loved my journey learning Rust.
Yeah.
I'm Rustling's biggest fan. I am obsessed with that project. So if you haven't checked that out, that's a great resource. Of course,
also PBA. We can go and mention PBA as well.
Actually, that's a great point. PBA, which stands for, we all know here.
Well, you got it on your shirt for a start.
I am not a fan of three-letter acronyms, TLAs, if you will, not in my book. What I do love is to explain Polkadot Blockchain Academy, which hopefully tomorrow we will have them up here to talk about the upcoming cohort wave 3, which is July 10 to August 10. And yeah, I would love to have someone to chat and answer questions that the audience might have about the application process.
Yeah.
Aaron and I myself are graduates from the last program. And then this program, next upcoming one, we will be teaching at it.
Yeah, so we're both going to be faculty there.
So excited. So yeah, if any of you are watching, we'll be in Berkeley in July. We'll see you there.
Yeah, and unfortunately, applications are closed for this coming up cohort, but they open up pretty quickly after each cohort for the next cohort. So even if you have missed the upcoming one in July, we do run them roughly every 6-ish months.
I wouldn't put a number on it. It feels like the plans are changing. We're trying to get them out as quickly as we possibly can. And it's an incredible opportunity for those who are wanting to build, to learn. We have a brand new founders track. But yeah, I am so proud to be a graduate of the program. I do not recall a time in which I was so dedicated to my learning. I was so myopic in my viewpoint in that for those 5 weeks, I was all in on my personal growth and learning. And so often I feel like we're having to balance life. We have a child, balance, parenting, balance, personal life. For those weeks while we were in Buenos Aires, we were students above all else. It was all we cared about learning and consuming frame, substrate, blockchain technology, learning about cryptography. It was so, what an incredible opportunity. You don't get those life chances.
And I have to admit, I'm a college dropout. So that was the first time I graduated from anything.
I think that is incredible. I think that what an incredible opportunity.
I got to wear the hat and walk across the stage. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it is really cool. Oh, we have a viewer from Arkansas. Very cool.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we had Costa Rica coming in, some LATAM. People asking about the NFT. Maybe Sasha can answer that later on. He's going to be talking to us about NFTs and Asset Hub. I have an answer from that for you. But yeah, we got all over little good morning dotsters.
Cute. I haven't heard that before. Dotsters?
Yeah. Is that the term for us?
I love it. I'm into it.
Well, good morning,
I feel
bye.
behind on vernacular. How do you personally keep up with the nomenclature? It is forever evolving. We heard on stage today. I'm hoping Rob will join us on the stream tomorrow, but he was talking, we talk a lot about block spaces. I would say a big word of Decoded.
Yeah.
Check out the most recent blog post that just was published. You can find a link to that on Twitter or on polkadot.network. But core time, like the nomenclature of all of this. Gab, when he was speaking, introduced verbiage. I'm not familiar with him. Like, I feel behind. I have to catch up and understand accords. I'm so excited about, and it feels like exactly what we've been asking for. And now it's just, oh my gosh, I feel behind in
a whole new lexicon.
A new lexicon. And so I don't know, folks in the chat, do y'all keep a running glossary, or you just what are you doing?
I'm just old. I'm just used to not knowing what the kids are saying these days. So it's just an extension of that for me.
I have personally stopped apologizing for not knowing something. I'm like, hold on, rewind. What words did you just say?
I'm only now just finding out about cap and T. So I'm well behind.
Excited for more people understanding and
using kilts.
Yeah. Let's get Dudley on the stream tomorrow for sure.
Big fan of Dudley here. We had a little summit 2 days before Decoded and spent a lot of time talking to some of the parachain teams. And yeah, it's always a lot of fun to spend time with them, especially teams like Kilt, where we get to see a lot of them. So it's always nice
cool opportunities to think about how we use cases to build across platforms and platforms, but for us to collaborate. Yeah, I think that's a better way to put it. Hello from Canada. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I don't think that this stream, by the way, all evening is going to end. We're not going to break the stream.
Yeah.
What we'll do instead, Aaron, can you show them that visual?
We will
We're
indeed. So
still
we've
here.
got the schedule coming up now, so I'm just going to pop it up here so people can see.
Yeah. Can they still hear us?
Oh, I have no idea. We'll keep talking just in case. But
Okay.
so as you can see, we have like a pretty packed schedule for the rest of the afternoons. So I'll pop that up while we go and round up our folks to talk about XCM. So please do stay tuned. The stream is still going to be live. We will try and keep that schedule as close as we can. It is decoded and things do tend to change. So we'll try and keep updated if that does happen. But yeah, so far we think what's going to be coming up. So we're going to have XCM. We're going to have some NFTs. We're going to have some Apollon. It's going to be a great way to finish out the day. So
for sure,
we will see you all in just a few minutes as we come back to talk about XCM.
While we're away, feel free to pop into the comments who else you want to see, because we have a full day of scheduling tomorrow. And I'm learning that people have a hard time saying no to my requests. So I think I just have a very, I used to be a teacher before I learned to code. And I think I put on my teacher face. And suddenly I'm
it's
like,
scary, folks.
I'm like,
scary.
We stream with us tomorrow? And they're like, yes, I guess I have to. And so, yeah, I'll just see if I can work my magic and get them on stream. So if there's anyone that you would love to see, put in your request now for sure.
Awesome.
Quick question. Could folks hear us while we had that other screen up on the camera, just so we know from...
Yeah, can you all hear us now?
Okay.
Like
now
if we
go
keep
back.
talking,
Go back. Can you hear us?
Can people still hear us? Drop a comment if you can hear us right
know.
now. I don't know either.
Drop it and then we can ask them if they can't hear us.
I'm gonna guess you all couldn't hear us. We didn't have any comments. So
yes, could you hear us just now when that graphic was up and over?
Their little animation was playing there.
That would be super helpful to know more. If not, then we will.
Oh yes, they could. Okay.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you so much.
So now we know we need to mute our microphones whenever we step away.
I was just gonna say is that if we walk away from this, we have to mute.
Oh hey, Greg, good to see you, pal.
Oh, so fun. Thank you so much for
you've
joining
joined
us.
Just as we're gonna step away for a couple minutes and go round up our XCM folks, but we will be back in the next kind of 5 minutes, so please don't go anywhere. And we're going to talk about
them.
I'm going to talk with them. So I'll be back again, and we're going to talk about some cross consensus messaging.
At some point, we need to talk about our cool pins too. I'm going to give folks a preview of what those look like.
So if you're here in Decoded, you want to know how to get one of those pins, come back to the next session. Okay, we will see you all soon, everybody.
Okay, I love
Thanks
you
very
all.
much. Bye. And we are back. I told you it wouldn't be gone long, everybody. So, yeah, we are back. Talking with some folks here from XCM. So I think let's start off just by doing some introductions. Tell everybody who you are.
Yeah, great. I'll first introduce myself. I'm Just. I'm part of the XCM team at Parity. I'm part of the second cohort of the PBA, Polkadot Blockchain Academy. We finished in February. And I joined in March, so now working around 4 months now for Parity. And it's been an amazing time so far.
Oh, great. He mostly said everything himself because most of the things are the same. I'm also in the XCM team. I was part of the first cohort, not the second one, of the Blockchain Academy. I joined around the same time, and so we've been working together, and it has been a fun time.
So I mean, we're all PBA graduates then.
Yep.
Exactly.
This might actually be a PBA thing and not an XCM thing.
For the people watching that want to join, I don't know if you can join for this one, but join for the next session. It's amazing fun.
Yeah, we have PBA questions.
Yeah, Lauren and I were just on kind of doing a little introduction there a second ago,
Nice.
and we were obviously Lauren and I are both also PBA graduates, and we were talking a lot about it because we're going to have some folks on tomorrow to tell us a little bit more about the program. So there you go, folks. Like, if there is any better recommendation we can give for like why you should go for PBA, like everybody you've seen on stream so far today, it's all graduates. It's not that Parity hires exclusively from PBA, but it hires heavily from PBA.
So if you want to be in the streams, then you should be a graduate.
Yeah, that's a requirement
that seems
getting
to
on
be the
camera.
thing, yeah.
So, okay, first of all, let's define what XCM is, because on stream we hate to just have like a TLA for the acronym and not actually define. So maybe some people in chat here are not so familiar with XCM. So what does it stand for, and what is it?
Yeah, so XCM stands for cross consensus messaging, and it's just a message format that encompasses it's a standard to talk to other consensus systems, which is kind of a fancy term. It basically means blockchains, but also other things. So that's why it's a fancy term. But it's to blockchains and other smart contracts. It's a standard that you can use to communicate intentions, and that everyone can use the same language to communicate usual things you do in blockchains, like transfer assets or paying for fees and other things.
And it's not just Polkadot, but I think it's only used in Polkadot at the moment, but it's not Polkadot specific, is it?
Exactly. I think that's really important to see. Only practical now is it's mostly used in Polkadot. We're working about a bridge between Polkadot and Kusama, so communication between those two ecosystems. But you could eventually see communication with Ethereum, with other blockchain ecosystem, and maybe even communication with other platforms as well. I'm thinking about Revolut, not saying that it's going to happen, but it might be even possible to connect to these kind of systems, and it allows a general language to talk with each other, and that's really cool.
So the way the messages actually get sent from one place to another, that depends on the system you build it in. In Polkadot, we have the XCMP, which Gav said earlier that it's a confusing naming because it has too much to do with XCM. But it's basically the way we use in Polkadot to share messages.
Okay.
But the XCM format is just a format, and you can use it anywhere.
So what's XCMP then? What's the P stand for?
Oh, the P stands for protocol.
Okay.
And it's the protocol to send cross-consensus messages.
So that's what we're using in Polkadot, but the actual standard of XCM could be used really by
so you could send the XCMs or XCM messages over IBC if you want to Cosmos. And if they have a way to interpret them, then it's fine.
Okay. So Keith just finished his talk on XCM as well. And so let's dive into that a little bit. So what it was, not that you're under any pressure, because Keith is sitting just off camera, I should say.
Looking right at us, saying if we say something stupid here. Yeah.
So I'm sure they're going to give a very honest opinion of Keith's talk. So what was the bit that you hated the most? No, sorry. What did you enjoy most about Keith's talk?
How to choose.
Yeah.
What is really interesting about XCM is it is an open protocol, but we're also moving now to making it open to the community in a way where they can contribute to it as well. We started a process, RFC process, which allows people to request changes to the protocol and maybe for their use case, but most commonly for the use case for everybody. And it allows people to join in the conversation about where this protocol should go, and that is really interesting to see where the future of XCM should go to.
Yeah, and just because we're going down the lane of explaining acronyms, if someone is not familiar with the RFC process, it's a usual thing in computer science. It stands for request for comments, and it's usually used, for example, in the web technologies like HTML, or the Rust community uses RFCs as well.
Yeah, I think RFCs are pretty kind of standard way of defining protocols. Like you've got your SMTP RFC, and like I remember reading different ones and to try and implement things way back. The different standards for them. I think even like the email's got an RFC as well, doesn't it, for the actual email standard? And it's
a bunch.
Really complex. Like the things that actually are possible in email is just incredible. But yeah, so what's coming up then? What should we be looking out for next in XCM? What's the exciting things that's happening? What are you currently working on?
Okay, so we actually have a few RFCs open. Some of them were made by us, but others were made by the community, which is great, by the parachain team. So if you want to look at what's going on and what's going to come to XCM V4 and any other version after that, you should go check the RFCs, because after you could even comment on them. After commenting and reviewing, some of them hopefully all of them, or maybe not hopefully, will be accepted, and those will be the new features.
And then we need to implement them all. So please send all these RFCs, the good ideas.
Or you could contribute, and then you can get to write your RFC and implement it too.
Exactly. But I think we are developing some RFCs for new instructions inside XCM. I think it's common knowledge that we have quite a lot of functionality in the relay chain currently, and Parody is making a move forward to move them out of the relay chain all to their own parachain. So we now have Asset Hub, which is really cool. But they also want to move other functionalities to these parachains. Think of staking, governance, these kind of things. And we're introducing new instructions to allow for these moves as well. Think of voting on another chain. Think of staking on another chain. These are instructions that we're currently thinking about and will be implemented.
So like special kind of instructions then that are part of the standards.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Because at the moment, is it just like so describe the actual kind of like body of a XM message for me then? Like, is it just a like blob of some kind of structured data, or?
Yeah, it's a series of instructions, and every instructions tends to be or aims to be something standard that everyone kind of usually does with blockchains. So you have instructions, for example, a message could be usually it would be something like withdraw an asset. So you get an asset from the sender of the message, from his account on the local system, and then you can buy execution, which is pay for fees, and then maybe deposit asset, which just deposits it into another account.
Yeah, there was a great presentation just now from a guy from Moonbeam, and he tried to explain it that it's sort of like actions, sort of steps, and maybe one of those actions don't make sense, but if you combine them, like these instructions, combine them, then you can create something useful. He gave some weird example about a bird standing up and moving and something. Didn't completely understood it, but in this way is, for example, withdrawing assets, doing something with the assets, for example, exchanging the assets, depositing to someone else, all these kind of instructions. One of them might not make sense for you, but if you combine a lot of them, they allow you to create pretty cool programs in a way.
Yeah. And that's all part of like so any kind of action type then is being standardized as part of the RFC process.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but if you're looking at different kind of like consensus mechanisms, like different blockchains, whatever, they could decide like, okay, we're only going to implement these following actions, or we only really care about doing asset transfers. We don't want to implement the actions for staking or governance or any new ones being introduced. Could they do that as well? Could they only like choose to go, okay, well, we're only listening for these kind of actions. We only know how to implement these kind of actions.
Yeah, definitely. The thing is now, these actions, when a chain receives them, there's is some place where they are executed. We call it the XCVM. It's the cross-chain virtual machine. So that interprets the messages, like the instructions, and executes on these instructions. We have a implementation of the XCVM within Frame. It's called the XCM executor. For people already using it, they know what it is. But that allows for the execution of all these instructions, and the XCM executor is completely like configurable. So there are many configurable items for the executor. For example, for allowing certain instructions. So you can already choose in that way as a Frame developer, what do you allow, what won't you allow. Taking it a bit further, let's say, for example, we want to do XCM on EVM chains as well, but we won't allow certain things. Then you have to build your own implementation for the XCVM. Might be a bit complicated, but still it's possible. That allows for certain instructions to execute. I think we have a project called Snowbridge now. That is building a bridge between the Polkadot ecosystem and the Ethereum ecosystem. And the first version of that will allow certain instructions, XCM instructions, to execute on an EVM.
That's really exciting. That's probably going to be the first time that we're going to have interchain communication. The first time will be between Polkadot and Kusama, but the first kind of like bridge to a completely different blockchain on our ecosystem is that going to be kind of the first implementation? And we think it's a Snowbridge implementation.
I think so. I think that will be the first implementation, but I think people are thinking about building other implementation for other ecosystems as well. It is a bit more advanced, but if you're like a really good programmer, just do it. Build it for Cosmos, build it for other places, and allow us to send all these messages to all these ecosystems and connect to us, because I think that is the future of XCM.
And I guess is it constricted to only other, I know it's cross consensus messaging, but really like you could send these messages to any kind of system. Like what they're kind of fire and forget, aren't they? Like you don't really, it's not like you're waiting for the other system to reach consensus and report back to you. You're just kind of going like sending the message to it, and you as the originator don't really care what happens after that point, I guess.
So it is fire and forget in the sense that you send them and you don't instantly get like the result, but you could, so it's agnostic in the sense that you could run it anywhere, like we were discussing. And if you wanted to receive, like if you cared what the other system does with your message, you could ask for a response, and you can build a system where you send a message and get a result back or get some information back.
So there is a mechanism in there for managing kind of responses.
So
XCM
doesn't assume that you'll get a result. But the XCM palette, which is a part of Frame, does have a system where you can expect a response with a certain timeout and act upon it.
Okay, cool. That's very cool. So what are we? I'm not going to hold you to this. It's like version 4. I know version 4 is currently in the works. But let's look beyond that. Like what is, and obviously this is going to be very dependent upon like RFCs and what the community thinks is important and stuff as well. But putting all that aside for the moment, like what is your kind of blue sky vision for XCM? Like if you could choose any direction they could go in, or anything that you could implement, or anything that could happen for it in the future, like where would you want to see it go? Like what's your grand vision?
Like I don't think that I have a grand vision. I hope that we can create a protocol where people can use it to explore like their grand vision. That is the idea. That it is a protocol that everybody can build anything they want cross-chain.
Yes.
That is maybe our grand vision. If we allow all our users, all the users of XCM to build what they want with XCM, great.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
I would say that my grand vision is, well, one of the grand visions of many, like Polkadot since the start has been to move functionality out of the relay chain, like just mentioned. So things like having parachains to take care of the governance and the staking and so on. So that's part of the grand vision. But also coming up with use cases that maybe we don't know now that will be general enough and like everyone will use. And then at that point, the community itself will create an instruction that right now we don't have that does a thing that's standard enough that everyone does it. So they add it to the XCM. That will be cool.
So what interesting things have you seen so far coming out of the community with XCM?
I think there are some interesting things happening in the community. Just the guy before on the Moonbeam talk where was talking about doing certain things on Moonbeam, but also allowing to do certain actions on other chains as well, and allow it from like one place. So you have one place that you can like access all these actions on different parachains as well. So you don't have to move your assets to another parachain to do some staking and then move to the third place to do something else. It's just one place, and from there on you can do a lot of different things on different chains. And I think that's already a pretty good implementation. But we would love to see more use cases as well. I think there are already quite a lot of use cases out there, but not all of them are probably known to us.
Do you know if the I know Kilt's now doing like DID through the relay chain. Do you know if they're using XCM for that?
Yeah, they're using XCM for that. I talked with one of their developers about how they could do a certain thing, and it was one of the ideas to like think how we could make XCM before account better for their use case.
Yeah, so I know before they brought that in, it was you're kind of going off chain to come back in again.
They had a lot of proposals, which was really nice to see that they thought of everything, like every possible way they could go to. And there were some that were like off chain and just looking at the Merkle tree or some other things, which we would want to make like have better developer experiences.
Yeah, because it kind of feels as well to me like anytime you're having to do something like that. And I'm not saying it like in Kilt or anything, but just in general, where you're having to take some part of the execution off chain, then there's induction. You can introduce like more chance to introduce security vulnerabilities, or sometimes we might have like a denial of service or something that could cause like the chain to stall as you're waiting on execution elsewhere, etc. Whereas if you're sending it through the relay chain by XCM, then you don't really have those concerns.
Yeah. So, and also if you start, like if everyone uses XCM, it makes it more powerful because it's sort of a standard that if everyone uses it, then it has more value. So if everyone either does things off chain or like creates their own way of their own message format to send between themselves, then it beats the purpose of what we're trying to build.
I'm gonna date myself a little bit here. That like I first got into kind of web application development pre even REST API days, when really anything and everybody was doing was just firing around their own random XML documents with no structure at all. Every time you'd be lucky if somebody was using SOAP or something like that to give it some kind of standardization, but mostly you're hitting an endpoint and just getting whatever their developer kind of thought of that day, that you then had to go and parse and trying to come up with some kind of structure around. And it meant that lack of standardization, there was such an increase in developer workloads and cognitive load, etc., as you had to try and remember the structure of each different API that you're hitting, and also the chance for like human error is like, in this one it's like users and this one is like user, and you're mistyping things or calling into the wrong attributes or whatever else. And when we started to bring in standardization, that lowered that cognitive load, it reduced the possibility for errors, and that's kind of what you're aiming to do here as well, is to bring a standard way of communicating, not just in Polkadot on the relay chain, but just like between chains. Like, we do have different ways of bridging between chains, but they're all different ways of bridging between chains.
So the other thing is that the other cool thing is that if you standardize, then if everyone is doing their own thing, like as you mentioned with the different APIs, you maybe have users and user, and maybe the API is in that way because of how they implemented it internally, but that shouldn't get exposed to the outside world. And so with XCM, we try to standardize, and then every chain implements it however they wish. So it doesn't matter if they use, in the case of Frame, if they use like palette balances or palette assets, the intention of transferring an asset, they will always be able to implement it in a way that is correct for them. And it might be a different way for everyone.
Nice. So we've got the chat here today as well. I'm just like I'm
Hi,
a few
Chad.
people on saying, yeah, hi everybody.
Hi, everyone.
So like if you've got any questions for any folks, we wrap it up on XCM, or we do have Keith sitting off camera as well, so I can. There he is. Hi. Do you wanna pop on, grab my headset, and just like tell people a little bit about your talk and some of the things you spoke about?
Hello. So, hello everyone. I just got off a talk talking about the future of XCM. I'm really pretty glad to be talking on the same stage as my teammates here. So, basically, what we have, what I talked about was one of the more important processes that we are going to set in place with XCM, and that's the RFC process. I'm pretty sure you two just talked about this.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Um,
You should still watch the talk though.
Oh yes, definitely. But yeah, but basically, just about the talk is just that moving forward, we as the XCM team will be actually using this process to even open this RFC process to propose new changes to the next XCM version. So this is really just a way of really decentralizing all of their technology, especially when it comes to XCM, and letting the community drive all of the adoption, the tech, and the implementation of technology forward. This is pretty much going to be important because we know that parity ourselves, we might not have opinions that are going to be best fit for each and every use case, and so as parachain teams grow larger and larger, they will have different kinds of concerns, and we really should be mandating everything that that goes on with the XCM protocol. And so right now, let's talk more about this. Let's discuss more. Let's all build the decentralized and a resilient future together as a community.
Woo! I think exactly what Keith is saying, that we as Parity do not always see what is happening in each parachain and what the needs are for each parachain. We, of course, have our own system parachains, like the asset hub and these kind of things. So a lot of the XCM messages are already focused on that, because we know, all right, for staking, we need some kind of staking instructions. For voting, we need some kind of voting instruction for like the governance chains. But there might be certain real neat instructions or changes to instructions for most of these parachains, and this process allows one of those parachains or a collection of these parachains to create one of these processes and ask us, okay, introduce this kind of instruction, or maybe change an instruction as well. That's also, of course, possible. That might make everybody's life easier. But we don't always know what is like the best way, right? What the best solution is. And maybe you have a really good idea, a really good instruction that we should implement, and then you can introduce it via this process, and we can edit, and we can make the world a better place.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that we optimize, like Parity optimizes for its current goals, which is to like make system parachains and move the functionality off of the relay chain, and those might not be the ecosystem's goals. Like maybe you're aligned with those goals, but it's not the things you want to see happen or that you're extremely excited about. And so that's why it's definitely up to the community to like propose the instructions. And I think Keith in his talk said that right now the process is in its infancy, so it might not be the best, but having a process is better than having no process. And you can propose changes to that process, as well as right now we are the ones who decide, just sort of like a band-aid, we are the ones who decide whether or not to accept an RFC. But in the future, it would be cool to have it be like an on-chain collective that takes the final say, even though all the commenting period and all the comments will be taken into account. It's still a much better place to aim at.
Exactly.
And not to put too fine of a point to it, traditionally, we understand that XCM has been quite a technical topic and quite abstract, to be honest. And we have also recently created a XCM documentation page. Have we talked about this?
Yeah, I think that's really important, especially maybe for the newer people within the ecosystem that haven't heard of XCM or want to learn more about XCM. We've been working hard on documentation, creating documentation for XCM. I think it's currently live on a GitHub
Page.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe we can eventually, Aaron can link it somewhere in the chat or whatever. I'm not sure how that works. But it's live on a GitHub page. It might get its own place eventually. But definitely check it out. You can also already find it on GitHub. I think it's under the parity tag /XCM docs.
Yep.
Yes, correct. That's the GitHub page, but the more fuller, so the fuller page is something like paritytech.github.io/XCM -docs.
Yeah, so there you go. You can
Exactly.
you can go right now.
You can learn everything XCM. You can start building tomorrow and create like your ideas and your future.
Yeah, we're still ironing out the wording and the like teaching aspect of the docs, but we'll make an announcement in the Polkadot forum probably when that's done.
Exactly.
But see the docs as an evolving document as well. It will evolve with the XCM like format that we have, but it will also grow with examples and maybe tutorials and these kind of things. So definitely check it out if you want to know more about XCM.
Yes. And much more importantly, we have opinions about how XCM can work. We also have opinions about how XCM docs what kind of information should be there. They might be wrong. They may be incomplete. So, again, the most important point here is if you have any good ideas, or actually, you do have good ideas, we'd like to hear about them. Please be active, proactive, and come talk with us, or better yet, make a PR to our GitHub repository, and we'll go from there.
Exactly. Cool. Are there questions in the chat? I don't know, Aaron. Maybe you might join on again. And, I can't read it. I don't have my glasses on.
That's too far away. No, nothing at the moment. Just we got a question asking for the URL for the documentation. I think you were talking about there, was it?
Oh, the URL.
Yeah. So I'll make sure I get that. I'll post that into the chat for everybody, so they can see it. And we just got people like saying hello. We got somebody saying hello from Earth.
Yeah, that's a good place.
Yeah,
I've been there.
Have you
it's not that great, to be honest.
No.
It depends.
Has its moments, I guess. Yeah. But no, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate that. I said before, like, I know this was the XCM session, but it's also like a mini PBA session over here. We'll have the actual PBA session tomorrow. Up next, we're going to have, I believe, Sasha is going to be coming on. Let me just double check that.
Where is Sasha? I saw him. I think. Oh, there he is.
Yeah. So we things have changed a lot today, as you probably can tell, from like scheduling and everything else. As is it's kind of normal for Decoded and Sub-Zero at any of our conferences. To be honest,
right?
Expect chaos, exactly. Yeah. So I think all of our conferences are actually deployed on Kusama, not Polkadot. But yeah, so things are going to change a little bit. But it is Sasha up next. He's just going to be getting everything ready at the moment. He's going to be here to talk to you a little bit about NFTs and Asset Hub. I know I've seen a couple of comments in chat about NFTs and things, so that's an exciting area for folks, and they're very interested to hear about it. So please do stick around. He's going to be joining us in just a few minutes. And then after that, we are going to have Ben here with Matthias from Apollon talking a little bit about their work as well. And they are currently, I think, giving a talk right now. So if you are watching that talk, or why would you be watching the talk in this one, I guess?
Yeah, if you're watching that talk.
Yeah, if you're watching that talk, you're not watching this anyways.
Unmute it and watch that instead.
But yeah, so we will be back in just a moment with Sasha, and we will see you all soon. Thanks again, everybody.
Bye-bye.
And we're live. Welcome, everyone. Super stoked to be streaming here from Decoded. I'm here with Yegor and Joe, and we're here to talk a little bit about the Asset Hub, and specifically with a focus on NFTs. So I just want to present why have I been interested in this. My name is Sasha. I've been at Parity for about 2 years, working on developer advocacy. And pretty much I met Yegor working on the new NFTs palette about a year ago, and we were in Cambridge together during the Polkadot Blockchain Academy. And we became really, really interested in the possibilities that it offers. And specifically, it was really a case of there's some really, really great tech being built. I want to make sure that other people understand how to use it. So the context is, I've been working on creating a resource to really kind of paint this narrative about NFTs on Polkadot, right? And we have Joe here too, which is really cool because he's also been a huge contribution to the specialized the blockchains connected to Polkadot, who are considered as well, we're going to talk about this, right? Yes. The naming and stuff like this. But so that's a little bit about me. Joe, why don't you kick it off with just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you've been working on for the last 9 months, and then maybe you can go into what you're currently working on. I'd say 9 to 12 months. I think a lot of the stuff that we see today is the fruits of the work that has been happening over the last 9 to 12 months. So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're working on.
Yeah, I'm Joe. I've been doing Polkadot stuff for 5 years, but in the last year, I think we only had Statement at the time as a parachain. So I guess a year ago, I was working on launching 2 more parachains, Collective's parachain and the Bridge Hub. But I guess this talk is more about the Asset Hub, so formerly known as Statement.
So you work at Parity? Do you work at Web3 Foundation? Are you an independent kind of contractor?
I work at Web3 Foundation.
You work at Web3 Foundation. And what team do you work on?
I guess I'm the team lead for system parachains.
Fantastic. Really, really cool. For those who don't know, system parachains, we will be talking about them, but they're a very key enablement of the Polkadot vision. Yegor, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? What have you been working on, and what do you currently work on?
Yeah, sure. So I joined Parity about a year and a half ago, and I immediately started to work on NFTs palette. And I had a lot of different ideas. I always tried to see NFTs as not just a regular JPEGs, but as a tool to represent different things in this world, starting from gaming assets to real world assets like real estate and so on. So I just got an approval to start the palette kind of from scratch and try to implement all the ideas I had here, which was really cool. And at some point, we just realized that some of those ideas and implementations were beyond kind of normal, and they opened just new possibilities. And now we want to explore them more.
Yeah, very, very cool. So, I mean, Yegor, you're a core engineer working at Parity. I'd say you are a core runtime engineer, where you primarily work with substrates, and you've been working on this specific palettes that we're going to be talking about today, called the NFTs palette, which is an improvement of what we currently had prior to. So the title of this session, actually, there's a mistake in the title. I realized it says Assets Hub. And I know Joe is very particular with naming. I know at Parity in general, we're very particular with naming, but we kind of come up with all these names and stuff, and then have to backpedal on a few things. I think that's a good starting point for this chat, right? So what you mentioned, you work on the systems parachains team. What does that really mean? What are you working on really?
Yeah, so I guess the long-term goal of this is to basically take everything out of the relay chain. So except for parachain validation. So the validators have to validate the proofs of validity for the parachains, and that's the only thing we want them to do. So staking, governance, bridges, even the DOT token and balance transfers themselves should all be eventually off the relay chain. So the main goal is to get all of that stuff into parachains.
Yeah. So I mean, like, but for me that makes perfect sense. The whole vision of Polkadot is to enable a network of interconnected blockchains. Polkadot itself really shouldn't really carry much application logic apart from its core purpose. It's also itself an application specific.
We should even be careful about like what we call Polkadot here, right? Because it's not just to create a network of interconnected blockchains; it's a scaling solution, right? So Polkadot kind of says, if you have a single blockchain, and you have this problem that people want to submit a bunch of transactions that have different speciality, like one might be about NFTs, one might be about governance, one might be about staking. There's only so much space available in this single blockchain. How do you go about scaling it? Well, Polkadot says you should move these into isolated blockchains and give them a sense of shared security, and then also a messaging protocol to talk to each other, right? So, well, Polkadot itself has a bunch of sub-protocols. Like you can kind of say like the primary for you would be auctions, staking, and governance, right? So, but what if you have too many of these transactions, or the transactions require a lot of compute power, like a lot of block space, if you will? How do you go about scaling that? Well, the same solution that we offer to everybody else. It's Polkadot just using itself to scale itself. So these basically some chains can just connect to Polkadot and say, I want to have an application. I'm going to connect to Polkadot because I want the messaging protocol. I want the other applications and services that are available there. I want the security, whatever. But Polkadot can also use itself for its own components of its application. So when we say Polkadot, we don't even just mean the relay chain. It's really just everything, and Polkadot just uses itself.
Yeah. So I think there's just one thing to clarify here is, anyone can go off and build their own application-specific blockchain using Substrate, etc. Then they can go through the process to connect to Polkadot and benefit from being a part of this ecosystem of connected chains. But there's something special to be said about the types of app chains that we're talking about, right? The types of parachains that you mentioned are system chains. This title, this chat is Asset Hub, right? What makes these chains like different or different than other chains?
Right. I mean, from the perspective of Polkadot, like they're not really, right? Like from Polkadot, from the relay chain's perspective, these are just other WASM blobs that it has to validate.
Yeah.
So I guess the thing that makes them different is their means of acquisition of how they get block space. So rather than going via economic means like an auction, they go via governance means. But that's the main difference. And then because they go via governance means, the relay chain and the system chains themselves can have a little bit different trust properties between each other, because they all know that they're governed under the same jurisdiction, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting differentiator, whereby these chains that have been created out of necessity to really leverage the vision of Polkadot, which is, we don't want application logic or specialized business logic that is anything extraneous to the core needs of Polkadot as shared security infrastructure layer. Then we kind of abstract that into their own chains, but they're chains that still are under the governance of the core infrastructure layer, which is the Polkadot relay chain. And I think that's what makes them different than, say, if I went to deploy my own parachain that specializes in NFTs or whatever, I would have my own governance, right? And I would have my own token. These app chains that we're talking about, the Asset Hub notably actually uses its native token is the DOT token.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you have your own governance, I'm not going to trust you with the DOT token, because you might mint more of it and try to send it back.
Yeah,
right.
But I might have reasons not to want to use the DOT token, because I have an application that is very niche, has a very niche business and market vertical, and I might have reasons to have my own governance and want to maybe change things faster.
Of course. I mean, that's one of the value propositions just in general.
Totally. So I want to just kind of step back a little bit and I think what's really interesting, what we're building in general, and we have Yegor here, who by the way, has, I think, spent a while in the Ethereum world, in the smart contract world, and we're pretty lucky to have him at Parity, building cool things. And I want to talk about what this application layer looks like. So like we're talking about this. Like we're talking about Polkadot is really some sort of like, I don't know. If you don't call it a network, what would you call it, Joe? Actually,
A network.
it's an entry. It's an entry point to Web3 services, right, of sorts. But so what does it mean for developers building applications on top of it, or within it? Maybe Jaeger, you can comment. So like pretty much like we have these app chains that offer specific services. What can I build?
Yeah. If you take NFTs as an example, and first let's
take NFTs as an
yeah.
example. I think a lot of the people here are stoked about the NFTs that we're going to talk about. But
yeah, so let's see how NFTs are made like on Ethereum in a smart contracts world. So every collection is represented by its own smart contract, which has its own completely different functionality, and then it creates like a huge friction to support all that. If you have like thousands of collections with its own functionality, it becomes really hard to build a front-end application. Those will know that that particular collection can do those things, but another collection can't do that. And when you work with a palette, so the palette itself acts as a one big standard. So you know that all the NFTs created here will follow the same standard. And plus, all those palettes are upgradable, which means that we can, at any given point, if we notice some security issues, so we decide to add some new cool functionality, all the NFTs will get that automatically, which is not possible, or it's hard to do in Ethereum.
Yeah, okay. I think there's a lot to unpack there. I think because what you're saying is I think has a lot of gravitas. Like it's actually like, this is what makes innovating on Polkadot, I think, boundless. We're not bounded by certain things like standards, like smart contracts, like EVM or specialized execution environments. Let's unpack the following. Like, what is it that is unique as a developer? What on the palette level gives me superpowers that I don't really have if I'm developing application logic on the smart contract level?
I would say maybe a constant API, that it's very readable and you can simply see all the pre-builds and just use it and try to focus more on your business logic and not on the basic things.
That's, I think. By the way, if there's any questions, I'm kind of looking at the chat here. Super nice to see some friends from Polkadot joining. And yeah, just feel free to ask your questions and stuff. Okay, so we were just kind of talking about, we kind of just went through like this concept of system level parachains, which really is these special chains that inherit Polkadot's security, that inherits Polkadot's governance, and that are really created to offboard some logic that doesn't need to be on Polkadot. So that's where the Assets Hub is created, right? So can you tell us a little bit more, Joe, about the Assets Hub specifically, and your vision for it and where it's going, and probably like comment on the last like 9 months of work or so that you've been involved with?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it's a hub for assets. So
yeah, for once we got the naming like good, right?
Yeah, starting with the obvious. So I guess we broadly we kind of divide these assets into two classes, right? Fungible and non-fungible. So I won't talk much about the non-fungible because Jaegor's here. But on the fungible side, we basically want it to be a location within the network that anybody can see as a reserved location for any assets. So when we launched this, the first kind of class of assets is what I would call trust-backed assets. So this is stuff like stable coins, like USDT is there deployed by Tether, and the whole idea is anybody can claim an asset ID, and so I have asset ID number 42, and I'm the kind of admin of this asset ID, so I can mint it, I can burn it, I can force transfer it, and so the people who use this are basically placing trust in the issuer, right? Like if you use USDT, you are trusting Tether that they actually have the backing that corresponds to that USDT that's issued on chain, right? So that's why I kind of call them trust-backed assets, because
no matter what protocol you have behind it, there is some account that is ultimately controlled by somebody with a private key that's signing it, right? Of course, it could be like a multi-sig or a proxy, but like if you go down the line far enough, like somebody from the outside world is submitting transactions that manage the issuance of that asset. So, it might be a person or an organization, but like you're trusting somebody if you use this class of assets. And of course, this isn't any different than like smart contracts on Ethereum, right? Like if you use an ERC20 token, you are trusting whoever actually like has the administrative privilege within that contract, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it sounds scary, like trust-backed assets, but I guess just call it what it is. That's what they are. And now we have this other class of assets that we added recently. Like I think in Asset Hub on Polkadot, actually, just like it's coming out this month, but it was like several months ago on Kusama, and we let it run there and like be audited and stuff. And these are foreign assets, and this is actually a lot more interesting and powerful, and it gets a little bit into XCM. And so within foreign assets, we actually identify assets by multi-location. So if you think about like Ethereum, you identify assets by the smart contract ID, which is like a 20-byte hash. So you can have like a bunch of assets that call themselves USDT, and there's kind of this like social consensus that like the contract with this hash is the thing that's actually USDT, right? And within like trust-backed assets, you have a similar problem. We don't use like a 20-byte hash. We use a U32, which is an integer. So like there has to be some kind of like social consensus that like asset ID 1984 is USDT, and other assets can call themselves USDT, but like this is the main one. When we go into foreign assets, this is actually a much more expressive identifier, which is a multi-location, which is an XCM primitive. So let's say you have another parachain. I'll go out of the range of current ones, so I don't look like I'm picking favorites. But like, let's say you have like parachain 9000, and it's like the Sasha chain, and you want to have your token on Asset Hub. Of course, like you could just like mint one and take, hey, like Asset ID 9000, like this one's mine. But then still like, well, who's actually controlling this, right? Like it's your account or something. With a multi-location, we can actually say that the identifier is, like the syntax of this would be like parents equals 1, which means from the Asset Hub, go up 1 level to the relay chain, your parent, and then go down 1 level into parachain 9000. So like the actual identifier of your asset is up 1 down to parachain 9000, and it recognizes your origin ascending that. It can also do assets within your parachain. So like let's say you're an EVM chain and you have like ERC20 tokens minted within your chain. But we can do this too. We can say like instead of just being like parents 1 parachain 9000, we can say parents 1 parachain 9000 this contract address, and that is that token on Asset Hub. We can also do this with bridges. So like instead of going parents 1, we would say go parents 2. Go up to the relay chain and then go up 1 more. But what's above the relay chain? It's like this kind of like fuzzy, like we call it like global consensus. And then you can say Ethereum or Kusama, or so you can say like
the bridge hub,
parents 2 Kusama parachain 5000, right? And it's going to be like that asset on the Polkadot Asset Hub. So we can actually express any asset in the world, not just within Polkadot, but like any asset that has like a routing path expressible via like global consensus.
But so long as that path is agreed on. It's like so long as like we agree that like this is the road. Like we're not going to take the forest road to express this. This is the road that we agree on.
But it's not even an opinion, right? Because like Polkadot has like parachain 9000 registered, right? So like it's not something, right? Yeah. And so like if parachain 8000 tries to send a message and say like I want to mint the asset of parachain 9000, it just says like, well, no, you're not the controller of this, right? So this is actually not like trust backed, it's protocol backed.
Got it.
By whatever chain or consensus system is actually sending or managing these assets. And so that lets it actually be like and because we have this like bilateral trust, like parachain 9000 is going to trust Asset Hub because it already trusts governance, right? Like if you're a parachain in Polkadot you are governed in part by the root origin of Polkadot, because there could be a public referendum to kick you off Polkadot.
Literally, yeah.
So you kind of have to
this
trust.
concept of trust is,
Yeah.
is like, I think it's also so misconstrued. It's like people don't like often have the wrong mindset about like when we talk about trust within Polkadot, right?
Yeah.
Like ultimately, like XCM is creating trusted routing for sending messages where we don't need bridges. So it's really great actually, because we don't need bridges.
Yeah.
We can say this chain says, okay, I trust that this other chain will adhere to the interactions that I allow it to do.
Yeah.
And then you have these, trusted paths of execution.
Yeah. It doesn't
But
really
when you
like,
say trust, it's not a bad thing. It's like a really good thing actually.
right.
Yeah.
Because it's like
It's
actually
often-
enforced, right? So like we trust, Asset Hub trusts your parachain to manage the issuance of your parachain's token, right? So that kind of allows us to transact in a way that other chains who you don't trust wouldn't be able to work with, right?
Yeah.
So that means you can send your asset here to Asset Hub, but then anybody else can use this, because like you might have a custodian and they don't want to run parachain nodes for 100 parachains, right?
Yeah.
But they can take these assets on Asset Hub and they can send them anywhere in the network with Asset Hub as like the reserve location of like where they're actually transacting from.
Yeah. So we're painting this picture of like, so basically Joe's been working on this for quite some time now. Like the Asset Hub and where we are today really is a result of many discussions on the forum, going back and forth, trying things out, making decisions. Like, that's also hard. Like when we're like, there's so many options. Like, what do? We can do this and that. And what we're talking about today is sort of, I think I could say this, like where we've kind of fallen comfortably, where where the concept of this Asset Hub has real utility for other parachains and users of our ecosystem.
Yeah.
So now there's the kind of like, let's bring it onto the NFT stuff where it's like,
by the way, I'm gonna get a charger because this laptop is about to die. So
oh, that's really bad. Yeah, we need
do
a charger.
NFTs. I'll go find a charger.
Okay. Yeah, this laptop is about to die. Okay, Joe is literally gonna find us a charger. What a gem. Yeah, so that that's funny. We all wear multiple hats at Parity. That's what's good. Parity of Web3, right? Oh, that's really unfortunate. We need Aaron. I mean, if it dies, right? It has 10%, Joe. So maybe we can make it happen. Sweet. That's not ideal, but that's okay. Yeah, anyone has questions? Like we're talking about the Asset Hub. We're talking about the NFTs on the Asset Hub. If you have anything relevant to that, I'm happy to bring them to Joe and Igor. So let's get back to it. I'm really stoked about this model, by the way. Like, I think it's like, it makes so much sense, and it really is kind of like carving out this narrative around like, we should stop thinking about like parachain A, parachain B, relay chain A. Like, let's just think about it holistically. Yeah. I think that is really inviting to that narrative. Right?
Yeah. So it sends a message to people that they can use Polkadot, but they don't need to run the infrastructure for all of Polkadot.
Yeah. So I actually wanted to talk about that. For me, like the end user that you're making the most happy here is all the exchanges and stuff that are listing these tokens that otherwise would have to list all of these the tokens from each and every parachain, which is also expensive for the parachains themselves. Here, these parachains, i.e. these app chains connected to Polkadot, can actually have their assets live on the Asset Hub and provide liquidity for their users.
Yeah, and also like if somebody wants, of course, like the Asset Hub doesn't have smart contracts. It doesn't have like these more advanced, like people might want to actually use these assets in some application, right? And of course that application won't be on Asset Hub, but with some abstraction and some like tooling, what we can give like to a custodian is an API that says like, just say the asset that you want to use and where to send it. And then so like when if the user wants to use like, an application on Parachain 9000, they don't even need a wallet for Asset Hub. They just say like, I want my asset on Parachain 9000, and a custodian can just send it there from Asset Hub which means the custodian only has to be integrated with Asset Hub, but a user can get their assets anywhere they want, and they don't need to because right now there's this, user experience thing that everybody complains about, which is like, well, if I want to use
clunky,
something on
it's
Moonbeam,
multi-chain, yeah.
I have to withdraw to Asset Hub, and then I have to set up a wallet on Asset Hub because I use MetaMask on Moonbeam and that doesn't work on Asset Hub. Now I have to set up a whole new wallet, get this over to Moonbeam. It's a huge pain. This completely removes the Asset Hub step from the user. So in an ideal world, end users they don't even know that Asset Hub exists, right? It's just a routing mechanism to actually use the applications that they want to.
So all this was really more focused on fungible tokens, right? Why I'm here, why we're here, why at least I kind of got Joe and Yegor to chat about the Asset Hub and in the context of NFTs is because we're about to find out how people and app chains and users are going to be using non-fungible assets on Polkadot, and we're still exploring, we're still innovating, we still need to have people building new use cases using the palette. We still want we want app chains to integrate to come up with cool ideas for XCM routing in order to make use of the Asset Hub. So I want to shift this a little bit to Yegor. What do you think, for example, based on this model that that really is we can say for sure this is happening, the ship has kind of taken off on using the Asset Hub how we just described it. What would it look like for non-fungible assets?
Yeah, for NFTs the story is slightly different. So
we have different challenges. Yeah. We have. It's actually but that's what's fun. It's it's a green field of innovation space, but with different
So currently we are exploring the idea of having your NFT on the Asset Hub with pretty advanced functionality, but with the ability to use your NFT across the whole Polkadot network. So you can connect your NFT from Asset Hub to some smart contract on Aster, for example, network, without doing a fully bridged transfer. Because when you transfer your NFT, there is a possibility that maybe you can lose some attributes or get your NFT completely stuck or lost. And usually people say they are afraid of that if the NFT is valuable. But they really want to use it, to use with some external services. And smart contracts here could act as a perfect place to play with those services. And here we are mostly playing now with the concept of dynamic NFTs, which means any NFT could have its own set of attributes. And if I want to use it in some, let's say, Aster network, I can simply pick a service, pick a dApp or a smart contract, and give access to that dApp to modify a subset of attributes under my NFT, which is safe because it means that dApp won't be able to transfer, to take over my NFT.
Yeah.
I can't lose it, but all it can do is to modify the attributes.
Yeah. So I just want to unpack a few things, right? But by the way, there's a resource that has been shared. I think there's a QR code in the stream, and I'll make sure to share in the link, where we're really unpacking how to use this palette, how the palette is designed, and hopefully understanding its design principles will help people build cool things with it. But Yegor mentioned a few key terms that I think we want to unpack, right? So the new NFTs palette, I guess we can kind of just go right into that without making too many rules for ourselves here. It has this concept of each item has a concept of attributes. These attributes, you can read about it more in this resource, are able to hold information about what origins can make changes to it, right?
Right.
And what you were mentioning is that you can have an origin be a smart contract or a chain itself.
Yep.
So this will really unleash really interesting things using the Asset Hub for non-fungible assets, where other dApps connected to Polkadot, whether it's Astar, whether it's dApp on Moonbeam, can make use of the Asset Hub for their own applications.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
really cool, because if you have multiple platforms with smart contracts, as a user, you don't need to move your token first to one platform, then
Oh, I have to put it up. Yeah. Okay, we're back. We just had a slight technical difficulty. By the way, this is the QR code. I'm just gonna leave it up there. Scan it and check out what we're trying to do, which is really get more builders to build applications using the NFTs palette, and also get parachain builders understanding how to. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for hoping. How to do things with themselves, right? Like, so please scan the resource and open up an issue or PR if there's anything missing or something like that. So let's get back to what we were talking about just before we cut, which is we kind of went through sort of the Assets Hub today, what it is, right? Like, which is very focused on fungible use cases of fungible. But the class of problem, or let's shift it and say the innovation playground possibilities for non-fungibles is actually very different. We can do interesting things with using the Asset Hub as an application that could be living on another parachain, such as the smart contracts chain, that uses the Asset Hub in the same kind of way for like a reserve, but to power whatever the business logic is. So what kind of cool application, like what kind of use cases do you have in mind, Diego?
Let's imagine that you have an NFT. These are two different marketplaces. One basically solidity, as I mean, and say seed was completely different database. So now you have a choice, and which marketplace to use. And in order, you can simply, without transferring your asset, move it across networks. You can simply send your NFT straight to the sovereign account of that particular marketplace contract Asset Hub. Which means, like, if there is a marketplace or cluster, if it will have a sovereign account or Asset Hub, you send your NFT, and then after some time, you can start using that marketplace with some price trading list, and others will start buying and selling your NFT until at some point they decide to withdraw it, and then they will get it back.
So you're painting a picture whereby we're talking about a use case that the marketplace, actually the marketplace itself have its own, yeah.
But the whole business logic seems the master of
Right. Yeah. I think that's what's so powerful. It's exactly what you just said, right? It's your business logic really lives on the parachain. Like, these are just primitives to use. Like, the Asset Hub itself is really a primitive resource for enabling use cases on Polkadot. And with these new non-fungible assets. By the way, the word NFT is just so wrong. Like, it's like we need to. That's not on us at least. I mean, we could kind of okay, by example.
We tried with the unique spells.
Yeah. Yeah, uniques, V1, V2, whatever it is. Like, for me, I think of these as like they're living digital organisms. They're not like fungible assets where there can be many of them. They have sort of inventory, issuer, or whatnot, and they can be used interchangeably. These are unique assets. Unique was probably a good word. We need that kind of more than that. I think there's some really, really interesting use cases. Joe, is there any like cool like non-fungible asset use cases that are particularly like front of mind to you?
I have a couple, probably not as advanced as with Jaguar sometimes, but I think one, like, to expand on what Jaguar said with like the Astar example.
Yeah.
Just that like example, you might think, well, why not just create this NFT collection of a star? But you might have some users who want to use this on a star, some who want to use it on unique networks, some who want to use it on BitLottery in like the game or something. Or you can have a a creator who they only want to deal with dots, right? So they want to create everything in one location. They don't want to learn about how to create NFTs on all these different chains. They can create lots of different collections, but the users can just send them to whatever application they want, wherever they want them, right? The other thing I would like with these like smart attributes in particular is using them to store metadata for the collection. So like this is kind of what the collection collectives.
Okay, yeah.
So
the
we have this,
collectives.
like,
Collectives.
Yeah.
Parachain, native to Polkadot. For those who don't know, collectives, parachain, focuses on collectives.
Yeah. I mean, it has like the.
But for people that are new, maybe it's not so obvious.
Yeah.
So it focuses on like creating. It's a chain that focuses on if you have like a membership, like groups of people that are specialized, whatever. Like you think a board member for a company, maybe a board member. That's what I meant to say. And in this case, really, like the collective is actually actively being used for the fellowship. The fellowship is this collective of very astute, kind of top-tier engineers that have done a lot of contributions to Polkadot currently, and there's this whole graded system. This collective has kind of this special collective fellowship has how would you frame it, like the ability to.
Briefly, the ability to whitelist calls and say like these calls are safe to execute.
But anyhow, so you're giving the example of the collectives parachain.
Yes, we have
NFTs.
We have a lot more collectives in mind. So
yeah.
The technical fellowship is maybe not the best example because it's actually very specialized. Like the whole group is just like 4 protocol contributions, and that's it. So like this has a very narrow scope. But I started working on this problem after doing the fellowship of the Polkadot Ambassador program, and this has like much more dynamic, like you could say almost like a keys, like a key value pairing. Like in the technical fellowship, it's just rank. Like there's rank 0 to 9, and the higher rank you have, the more experience you are. So the rank expresses like how much experience you have and how many contributions you made to the core protocol. And of course, you can have this in other types of collectives, like the master program, and be like you've accomplished as a master, how many years you've had in the program, these types of things. But there's a lot more other ways that they want to be able to categorize members. So one of them is by region. So I would say like who are like the North American investors, right? They also want to say like they do a lot of different say like types of programs. So they have like people who do like content creation videos and podcasts and stuff like this. But they also have people who host events, right? Yeah. So you might say like, well, what group is this like part of the events group or something, right? And as I started trying to like code this up, I was like, well, you have to choose something to key this group by, right? Like you can't key it by like 20 different things. It has to be like, so okay, we go back to like the rank, like 0 to 9 or however you configure this. But we want to have this other information for members, or maybe they just want like some badges like for specific accomplishments, right?
Yeah.
And so well, actually, with the smart attributes thing, we can say that like there's an owner of each item to be the members of this collective, but they don't have the authority to update their attributes. That authority sits with the collective, the ambassador program itself. Right. So the ambassador program could say like these members are the North American or European members. These members do video creation, and of course, if somebody like moves, right, they can just go to the collective and say like, hey, can you make a referendum? I've moved, and like here's some proof. Like, put me in a different region, right? And like the collective itself can update this metadata about its members. Yeah. And so then you can get this like membership badge that just says like, of course, the collective's parachain says like this account ID is a member of the collective, but it doesn't really tell you anything else about that member. Yeah. And with these attributes, you can get a bunch more information about that member in particular. But it's not just like, oh, this member says so. Like they did this. That's information. The source of this information is actually the collective itself.
Yeah, the collective, which can update this asset, which is this living really asset. It's a living badge of that can carry information about that ambassador's progress. But when you were talking, you said like I just like this. I wanted to say it.
Right. So because the ambassadors program is so much potential for using non-fungible assets. I think one obvious one really is what we're talking about badges. Right. We want to have the ability for ambassadors to show show kind of what their experience, what they've done, etc. And this is, by the way, very applicable. Like I've had ideas to create a collective for DevRel. Like we want developer relations people within the ecosystem to be part of this collective that then we have advantages from being part of the collective, you can get funding from Treasury, like all this kind of stuff. You also can have privilege on like voting on like hackathon submissions, for example, and get rewarded for it, right? But the ambassadors program, there's an interesting property about it, which is correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you can only have one ambassador per city. Something like that. Oh, I don't know. Okay, but let's pretend like it's that. Imagine if you create, fractionalize an asset which represents all of the possible ambassadors, and it's not for any. It's for representational worth. Right? It's not for monetary worth of any sorts. But we can fractionalize an asset into the number of because there's only a few cities, right? And that we want more ambassadors, right? So, but not two ambassadors can be in the same city. So if you will hold that entity for the duration of your ambassadorship, and we can even program things where it's like you lose it after a while if you don't kind of do X, Y, Z, which we can, I think, kind of hold these non-fungible assets. Comments on that? It's doable. That's what I like to hear. Yeah, but yeah. So back to like the use cases and stuff. I think if there needs to be a takeaway. Like the takeaway I'd like people to get is if you're a parachain developer trying to think about these cool XCM use cases with using this. We touched on a few things. I think that's super attractive. But there's also like what's also kind of ironic is like right now anyone can create their collection on Kusama Asset Hub, formerly known as State Line. Actually just use it, like start experimenting, right? What are things you're hoping to see people experiment with? Or, I don't know, like what's a low-hanging fruit?
So you can create a date attribute. You give the work of like special access. Nice documentation you get to the name, and you be able to see that the data information some UI.
So that's like so the use case I think specifically you have certificates that are issued by some authority, and that authority's its job is to update it based on like, for example, you wrote your exam and it's a grader. That asset that you hold is the certificate, and it can be updated according to all the different courses that you're on.
It could be a
credit rating. Like, yeah. I like to get out of the DeFi applications. I think that's like for us in Polkadot for a while. It's like that's what we're, but there's a lot of DeFi out. Like of course, yes, credit rating.
Another possible very easy use case is Polkadot. We can create a collection where anyone can enter. In this here, you can set the price, you can set the max supply. You can easily start and get the buy and trade.
Yeah, so I wanna like kind of clarify and ask you specifically here now at this point. And by the way, if there's any questions, please, I'll be checking out in the chat. Can you tell us what are some kind of cutting edge features at the end of this house in terms of functionality?
So, feature will be like atomic trading feature. So, if you compare to Ethereum, where you usually in order to trade, you need to provide the this is some specific articles. But here, the trading features so you simply put the sale will be NFT, set the price, and anyone can buy. So you don't need to trust anyone.
So anyone can buy it, meaning there's by sending a transaction with the signed offer. I think like that, like it's like a feature of the palette. Which, by the way, the resources that I've shared here, there's still a lot of work to do. So I could use help for like, okay, what's missing and stuff. Like literally, we need an entire section on swapping that we could be doing as end users and as app chains also.
So, for example, everyone who attended here today, now, as an example, we can create a new collection and allow anyone who attended here but here to get a new NFT in that collection and use it some kind of DAO people who attended those conferences.
So specifically, wait. So like I can. This is just a simple use case of being able to mint from a collection only by proving that I have. Only if I'm a holder of an item from another collection. Yeah, that has a lot of interesting use cases. Like, is that any use cases that resonate with you for that?
That's where I go to Yegor.
That's where you go to Yegor. Yegor, make me magic. Joe's like, yes, waiting for the element message. That's really cool.
Probably the main feature is smart attributes.
Yeah.
Where so all the attributes are divided into categories. So namespaces, so there are attributes of all the collection owner itself. And in any given moment of time, it will update those attributes. Another layer of attributes is like user-based attributes. So when I connect to some DApp, the DApp wants to save some settings. And they will generate those settings, and I can submit a transaction start under my NFT. So next time you go into the same DApp, it will automatically recognize those settings. And you can adjust UI basically.
Yeah.
And the certain spaces where I give access to a third-party origin through update.
Yeah. Like, so I think this touches in like, for me, it's like one of the kind of it's the least well spelled out parts of like being a builder in our ecosystem, right? What's not really well spelled out is like typically you have people that are like, yeah, I'm a Web3 dev, I just do smart contracts. But with Polkadot, I think we're really exploring all these different sort of what I kind of like to call like programmable interfaces, where you have the app chain level, which is really building the palettes, and then you have XCM programs, which is really this interface of like chains talking to each other. And then you have sort of this high-level application layer, which is like pretty much web apps that interact with the infrastructure. And that's very akin to, if I'm going to do contract, I'm also going to have a web app that interacts with smart contract. However, right? But I think the palette specifically, the way that it's designed is very user-centric. Like, you as a user are the one, like, if you are going to buy into this collection, it's on you to check whether the collection was created under settings that you buy to. Like, for example, I would never buy a GIF NFT, which they call it PFP type NFT, right? Where I can see that the way that that collection is created has this little bit flag that says the collection owner can change the metadata. That would be like so dumb. Like, but this technology is really like the user should verify first. Oh, that's primitive. That kind of indoctrinate ourselves with. However, whatever. And my point being, with this new paradigm, that also means that the applications that are being built using like the NFTs palette, for example, there's a lot of onus on the web app. Like you keep saying that. Like you keep saying, yeah, it's the marketplace that needs to enforce certain things. Like the marketplace will check certain attributes and certain settings that based on them, it'll provide a service or not. And I think that this is like very, very central to when we talk about building applications on Polkadot, where builders we have a luxury basically to have like like builders that are just web apps, web devs. Like they just need to understand these core primitives and the way that the kind of underlying infrastructure works.
Yeah. And the cool thing here is that the end user has a full control of the data that is set to this entity. At any given point in time, to simply reject remove the access to some servers.
Yeah, I think this is super powerful. We also have the ability for we talked about the system level attributes, the collection attributes, the user attributes. So if I'm holding an item, I can just kind of add a cool name it, whatever, yeah. And then I can also allow a DApp to make changes, or a web app, and that could be a really just for a simple use case. I want to log into this web app with a specific skin, my personalized skin or experience. So very stoked about these use cases. So we talked about a lot. We kind of should be wrapping up. Talked about Asset Hub, talked about like what it is today, and really my motive of having this chat is like I'm really excited about builders exploring new use cases for non-fungible assets in Polkadot. So I hope that like that this kind of message comes across. What are you like most looking forward to, Diego and then Joe, and we can kind of unpack. What are you most looking forward to? Like, what's the future of like, what your next focus is going to be, and what are you most looking forward to in terms of seeing like new applications being built on this tech?
First of all, now we're additionally exploring the way for NFT as a part to act as a build. That will open a huge new amount of possibilities for NFTs and for the builders. And yeah, in general, with the builders to start connecting their projects with business needs to NFTs instead of assets.
Yeah, very cool. What about you, Joe? What's kind of next for you? What are you excited about?
Yeah, so products using multiple chains. Like there's been a general idea to think like, well, I'm going to build this product with a chain as a component, and I want to change that and see more products that actually use multiple chains. So I think collectives having NFT badges is one example of that, but also like NFT wallets, right? You could say members of the fellowship should be able to vote without paying a transaction fee, right? It should just, the NFT itself should be able to serve as like a form of transaction payment or verification. So like if there's a fellowship referendum, they should be able to vote using it. So also using like the fellowship over the bridge. So we talked about some of using like 3 chains, right? Like Polkadot collectives over the bridge hub to Kusama to relay chain. Right? That's the goal for referendum there.
Yeah, that's so exciting.
I think seeing stuff like UIs that abstract out what parachain you're using and those applications that are actually using chains.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great place to end. I wasn't able to take any questions, but like, if you guys are interested and have ideas and whatnot, like the resource that I shared is a QR code is a great place to just put an issue and be like, oh, I'm curious about this idea. I'm here to kind of be that proxy for the stuff that we're building at Parity. So I wanted to thank you, Joe, for joining, and also Yegor for making the time and making the palette. Yeah, I want to thank you for making the palette. I should have just said that. Yeah, well, really stoked about it, and let's keep building some cool things, and let's really like unveil the potential of the applications that we see. Sweet. Cheers.
Hello, how are you? Good to see you. How's the day been for you so far?
Good.
Yeah? First of all, who are you? Why are we talking right now?
Matyash. Let's go by Matt, just easier.
You know, we can try that. Matyash. Thank you. And what do you do?
I'm the founder and CEO of that.
Avalon. That sounds like a great name for a really interesting project. I think we need to learn more about the project, which we're going to get to first of all. But so you're Matt, and you're the CEO and co-founder of a great project called Avalon. You actually just spoke on the stage here at Decoded. Decoded is an awesome event.
It is.
It's a great venue, and for all of you watching on the streams, I'm glad you're able to do it as well and participate and experience some of it too, because it's just an amazing time. So you spoke about tennis on stage? Badminton, right. It was a special session on badminton and Web3. That's usually the title of it. So first of all, I'm Ben. I'm part of the DevRel team here at Polkadot, and I'm so delighted to spend time talking with you. I got to meet you, I think, near the beginning of my time. You're one of the first people I met in the ecosystem, and I love your project. It's such a delight to get to talk about it. So you're probably thinking to yourself now, okay, Ben likes this project, right? You're listening, you're watching this, but what is this project? It's not badminton, although that would be interesting, or tennis, which would also be kind of fun. What do you do?
So when we started building on Polkadot, we kind of built a simple application for enterprise customers. And we kind of fell down the rabbit hole when we started working with different parachains.
That is a rabbit hole.
It is. Yeah. It is. But eventually we figured out there's so much work to be done to integrate all those different parachains and work with them in the true interoperability in the front end, that there's a need for a tool to kind of do the same thing that Polkadot is doing in the backend layer, to combine them on the front end layer, so create this true interoperable UX in the developer's interface and take out the complexity of the tech. So that's what we're actually building. So we're doing an infrastructure layer, abstraction layer, by integrating different parachains and then translating those services into simple APIs.
That is really interesting work. I think that we're looking at a landscape of so many parachains building incredible services that allow builders to build with them, on them, across them, and yet, as you mentioned, there's just this complexity that is present that can be a hurdle for those that want to get involved. And so you're essentially trying to simplify that hurdle.
Yes. I can give an even simpler example. Maybe there are folks out there not so tech. I just had to explain the other day to my uncle what they're doing. Like Web3, what's that?
Explaining to your uncle is the best way to learn how to do something. Exactly. And explain it. Like, how do I tell my uncle this thing?
He was like, what do you do? I mean,
what do you do, Matyash?
Like, imagine you want to make a lasagna.
Yes,
right?
As we do.
Yeah. So you can go both ways. The hard way or the easy way. The hard way would be grow your beef, tomatoes, chickens, eggs, pasta, and then create your lasagna. Or you go to the supermarket and buy the ingredients, go home and make your lasagna. And in this analogy, the farmers are the parachains. They have this domain-specific knowledge of the verticals that they need to do that, but they don't have to think, how are my tomatoes going to be used for salsa, salad,
they make
sauce.
The tomato.
They make the tomatoes. And we are the ones kind of taking those tomatoes, packaging them nicely, and then offering it in a simple way so that it cooks and basically stick the ingredients.
I appreciate that you're talking about tomatoes and pasta near the end of the day. It's just a great way to prime us to get ready for our lovely dinners tonight here in Copenhagen, because Copenhagen is known for its Italian food.
Yeah.
They're known in Denmark for their Italian food. It's well known. Hey, Ajay, nice to have you join us from India. We love you too. So can you give us an example of tomatoes that you take, the services, the facilities, the resources of different parachains, and what's a good use case example of what would a developer or builder do within Avalon to build across that?
Okay. I mean, the simplest way of what's still a big hype are NFT, obviously, and then going through the scenarios that happened, for example, FTX, right?
Right.
They had
what happened? What was that again?
There was a small.
There was a small
shop.
thing or something, right? Okay, yes.
It's not that really.
Yeah.
I mean, but they had, for example, NFTs on their platform.
Right.
But they also hosted all the images, NFT metadata, on their internal databases, right? So what happened when FTX went down? The NFTs were on chain, but the metadata and images were gone, disappeared. So what we're trying to achieve is really, obviously, we have services out there trying to put data on like FS and so on, but we're interconnecting in a single interface. You can mint the NFTs on different parachains like us and Bluebeam, but interconnecting as well with Trust so that all your data is being pinned to Trust and IPFS in the same workflow. Right? So you don't have to go back and forth to find a solution to do that for you. It's all done through a single platform. And obviously, the use cases are endless. Once you start implementing new parachains, like Guild for Identity, you have Fala for computing with trusted executable environments, and it just, you can just build anything, basically.
It sounds amazing. So it's basically taking all those services, all those utilities, and giving one resource, one place for developers to build across, whether it's secure storage, or NFTs, or decentralized compute, and build together. So what are some interesting examples that you've seen out there that are utilizing this lasagna making service of Apple?
We're actually going to be demoing it tomorrow on our booth.
Can we get a sneak peek here?
Yes,
for now, for live stream. Yes.
You're the privileged one here.
Okay.
So we're utilizing like 3 parachains like Fala, Bluebeam, and Trust for this example. We want to be the ones kind of giving you NFTs. The NFTs are your keys to unlocking encrypted storage of Trust. So by you having possession of an NFT, you're able to decrypt a smart contract or a fat contract on Fala, which enables you to upload or download storage from Trust. So in essence, in the long run, we want to kind of mimic or start pushing people or users into the field of having a mnemonic-less login, like an OAuth solution, right? By encrypting the password using the encrypted email, the fat contract of storage.
That's absolutely incredible.
So, but yeah, I mean, I just showcased on stage. I mean, you could be building an email like on Instagram, on Salesforce, basically by utilizing different levels of parachains without ever touching a single parachain. Right? You just call the APIs and build your app with JavaScript, C, Python, whatever you're familiar with, whatever you're comfortable with building, without having to go yourself.
That's absolutely amazing. When you were seeking out to build this, right? So it sounded like the building of this initiative was a bit of a journey itself.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little about that journey?
Yeah.
So how did it start, and how did you get to this inspiration of this idea?
We actually developed it by accident.
You developed by accident?
Yes. We didn't intend to build this as we're building today, because we started initially by building a data integrity platform. So we wanted to create a nice on-ramp for enterprises. So we created APIs for Oracle, Office 365, for SAP, to kind of give enterprises this first look and feel of Web3, what it looked like.
Right.
And we're taking those data, hashing it in, hashing this data in the blockchain, right? Just giving them integrity solution. If the data on the source will change, the hash will change, the hash will match the hash will change. But kind of the pushback from the customers was like, what you're building is a nice-to-have solution, not a must-have, because there's not like a government regulatory thing in place, kind of pushing on us that we need to have this. We need something more innovative. And this is when we kind of switched over from Ethereum to Moonbeam, because we thought, okay, Moonbeam would be more suitable to build enterprise-like applications, more stable.
So that was the first step in this process.
Yes, yeah, because it was the easiest way to really migrate the code from Ethereum to Moonbeam.
Right.
And then
shout out to Moonbeam.
Yes. And as we started deploying and exploring the ecosystem with the customers together, POC, and they said, look, we would like some data tied to our smart contracts. Like, okay, there's trust. How about identity? You want to have a public identity? Oh, there's Guild. And then, like at the beginning, we fell down the rabbit hole by starting implementing those solutions. So there's so much work to be done for housekeeping. Each one of them separate, right? So much housekeeping with a wallet, with tokens, with nodes, with scripts. At the end of the day, we're just doing so much back-end housekeeping of infrastructure work that we can even focus on building the app. So to get to the point of having a ready solution. Yeah, it's just too much work. So we start building Polkadot in a sense for ourselves as a tool to hook up the parachains and then create open API so it's replicable. And we then figured, oh, damn, we're actually building a tool that's
It's actually useful
yeah.
for others than just us.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
I find that a lot of times the greatest solutions are the ones that solve your problem. You have a real problem point, and you solve it. You realize that I'm not the only one to have that problem, and it becomes suddenly a much more expansive solution for many, many others. I'm curious if there were inspirations for you from outside, because what you're building is a bit unique. So outside of the Web3 universe, were there inspirations from the broader tech landscape that helped inspire you, move you, help you craft what this looks like today?
Yeah, I mean, I was presenting on the stage, to go through a journey from Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, right? When in Web 1, there was cPanel, right?
Yeah.
cPanel was your gate. Exactly, yeah. This was your gate to interact with the backend infrastructure, to start building front-end application, right? Without it, MySQL and all the other databases couldn't basically be what they are today, right? And they kind of got the adoption through them. And then with Web 2, we see the rise of cloud infrastructure like AWS, Azure, and so on. And then again, you as a web developer, mobile app developer, you want to have a tool in place that abstracts the complexity of you having to cope with infrastructure level. So Firebase would be a nice Firebase or AWS Amplify, right? They both do this abstraction layer of the cloud infrastructure to make it easier for you to build apps without having to worry how much compute nodes they need, how much storage they need, abstract it forward. And we kind of went down the same route for Web3, because what the teams here are building is amazing. The whole ecosystem of Polkadot is perfectly suitable of replicating a Web 2-like cloud experience on Web 3 by having a truly decentralized backend infrastructure. But what's missing is this unified UX that brings them all together and offers in a simple manner. So this was basically our journey that we wanted to mimic or replicate, have developers coming into the space feel comfortable and feel at home. But then we can take them by the hand and say, oh, you want to build a team or you want to go to the specific parachains. Those are the teams to start with.
And what's the process like to integrate other or new parachains into Apple? What's that look like for you?
We're doing a lot of research. All our developers are not just code writers, they're also doing a lot of R&D. So we just, let's say, monitor the market closely to see what parachains are doing problems currently, what parachains are building amazing stuff. And when we start integrating them, it is an opinionated service currently because we have to pick a service that's an abstract data.
How do you pick?
We talk to the parachains, so what's the most common or what's the most used feature on a specific parachain, right? And then we basically translate that into API. But there's a huge backlog from the roadmap with what else has to avoid because we have now 6 parachains running and 4 parachains in the pipeline. And then once we kind of finish with the initial integrations, then we go back to the beginning and start going.
And you have to keep up to date with the developments in each parachain.
Yeah.
So as you add a parachain, you're adding, of course, more R&D time, continuing ongoing.
Yes.
So the project grows as the parachains grow.
We grow.
We grow.
We grow.
Like a good lasagna.
Exactly.
But Apollon itself is not a parachain.
No.
So tell me about that.
We started the discussions with Parity because having this integration, we wanted to be closer to the parachains and thinking about going for parachain stuff, have this infrastructure interoperability,
right?
Like CM. But then through discussions, it became clearer and clearer that there's no need for us to have a parachain. We would rather be an infrastructure layer, which is a new layer on the ecosystem. Right. But given the fact that this is a big missing piece, this should be a common good thing. And really, every parachain should benefit from it, not just a single integration.
So I think for those of us who are maybe not familiar with this language in the community, can you give a little bit of a rundown when you say a common good thing, what does it mean to be a common good service or a common good value? What is common good in the ecosystem?
I think there are different views in the ecosystem of common good should be, but if you look from the traditional society perspective, the common good thing should be a solution that's really serving everybody. It should be free, but basically fostering the adoption, fostering the growth of the ecosystem, and this is what we believe we can achieve.
And how does that look practically for Apple?
So for first, I mean, we're going to move to open source. I mean, the whole code is going to be relatively available for everyone to basically build together and grow this thing.
That's a big transition.
It is. But also, we want to make all those services from the Polkadot as a freemium. Right? We want to invite new developers into the space and showcase what we're capable of doing here. Drive the adoption, bring new developers into the space. We still believe, or we are very confident that Web3 or Polkadot is the backbone of the future Web3 environment. So that's why we did it here in the first place.
So are you also busy onboarding Web2 developers?
Yes.
How's that look?
As we're still building, we're more focused on building right now, but down the road, we believe, we should be attending a lot of those Web2 conferences that we're doing very well across the globe. Web Summit, we are developers and so on, to really showcase that building Web3 isn't that hard. You don't have to go out into comfort zone. You can stay in your comfort zone, build with languages you're familiar with. That's actually our scope, to kind of work to get close to parity and then address the mass of developers.
The proposition being that for the Web2 developer, the idea of having a service, let's say a SaaS provider,
yes,
that weaves together different services you can build a web app with, or build a DApp with, or build whatever you want to build, but having that layer is the one that's very familiar with. And it's a language that is instantly understandable. That's the idea. So we're going to go to these events, we're going to these spaces, and it becomes a not a bridge between chains, but a bridge between peoples, and allows them to onboard in a way that they understand. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks. That makes a lot of sense. So your journey from where you are now into becoming a common good infrastructure. Some of that is happening on chain.
Yes.
And it's happening through, one might call a proposal, in the wonderful new world of OpenGov on Polkadot, which is an adventure, and it's going boldly where no one has gone before, at least on Polkadot. So I'm curious to hear how that's been. You put it out there.
Yeah, the discussion is out there.
So everyone who's watching, you can actually find that discussion, and you can read it, you can participate in the discussion, become part of it. It's actually a very vibrant conversation.
It is.
Last time I peeked, there's a lot of things happening in that conversation. So where you sit as founder, co-founder, running this amazing service, what does that look like to you to see this happening live before your eyes?
It's actually cool because having really those engaging conversations, as I said, it should be a common good. So basically, everybody should have a voice, how they should be structured. Everybody should participate in the discussion of the proposal, right? And we've put out the discussion last Monday, and given the fact that the document is only 51 pages long, it's not something that really breaks.
No.
So I encourage everyone really to sit down and have a read through to understand what we're building, why we're building, how we're building it, and for who we are building it for. But I love the discussion. We really want to make, like I said, it accessible to everyone. Also, we've learned from, let's say, past proposals, also how the payout structure should look like, because obviously there were a lot of bad sentiments in the ecosystem, that a lot of huge sums were being elected and not being delivered on. That's why we kind of have this hybrid approach. Right? We obviously need an upfront runway to start.
It's a bit standard in creating.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, we're all living, having families, mortgages, and so on, right? We have to kind of have things.
That doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah. No. So in that regards, kind of, we want to have this upfront payment, and basically the follow-up payments are tied to milestones. We are part of the subsidy bonus program, where our work is being reviewed periodically by our parity team. But in this regard, we want to open up the collective wide parity, information, parent chain teams, but also the ecosystem having insights in there, basically granting us the payoff.
Like really an increased layer of transparency
Exactly.
and accountability,
Yes.
even more than what is necessarily standard at this point.
Yeah.
So I think that is absolutely integral. When do you expect to? What's your timeline?
So we want to go live on chain on the 12th of July. So roughly. It's like
Pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, discussions are out for a week. So I'm happy to be here to kind of share the news and invite people to have the discussions. But we're going to go live with this close on the 12th of July.
Amazing, amazing. And how's the? So as somebody who has worked and works in open source for quite a few years, and it has seen also the journey of a closed source tool becoming open source, what's that like right now? How's that journey?
In a way, I would say it's a kind of a relief because there's no.
It's a relief.
Yeah, because we are finally able to share with everyone what we're doing and then showcasing the roadmap, showcasing the progress that's being done. Obviously, living in crypto community, there are a lot of questions. What is happening? What is going to happen? Why is this not going to happen? But having a transparent roadmap, having transparent contributions out there, everybody can follow along and start contributing. And it's just us being the maintainer of the code in a way, but inviting as many people and start really building this with a much larger workforce than we had before. Right? So we're just laying out the ideas, but then invite basically everyone to contribute to it. And start
It's really another fulfillment of your aspiration to be a community common good.
Yes.
That everyone can not only see the code, but they can help build the code.
Yes.
And they can, if they find a bug, which happens to all of us. No, not for Apollon, never. If they find a bug, though, God forbid, if they find a bug, they can address it themselves, they can raise an issue. So there's things like having good readmes. And,
yes, this is actually a big part
of what you're doing now.
We actually really want to consolidate all the know-how of the ecosystem to a single point of library.
That's a huge
right?
process.
Yes, because right now, like in the building on each parachain, you have to jump between parachains, read through all their documentation, whereas we are abstracting it, putting in a simple APIs, and then just offering new services, and you read through the services list, right? If you want to go deeper, obviously, we'll have cross-references.
You know what I particularly like about that? So not only does each parachain offer its unique service, distinct from one another, but they also do it in different ways. So the documentation language of parachain X is going to be different than the documentation of parachain Y, and the code will be different from X to Y, and you're offering a standardization of both the code into an API, but also perhaps also the documentation, which one language, one way of stating something, it helps somebody who just wants to build and looks at the docs to solve a problem, get to that solution faster.
Yeah.
It's a great service. I think
you
we could all benefit from
somebody who just wants to build. We had one of the devs, not a dev, he was a NFT artist, and we were asking him, how do you want to draw? How we went to this? He was like, I just want to draw.
That's all I want to do.
I just want to draw.
That's what I do in my life.
How it's going, how the tech behind is looking. I just want to draw.
Right.
And then you have devs just like that. I just want to build.
I want to build something.
Yes.
Right. And this is in so many ways providing the actualization to create interesting, useful dApps and services in Polkadot. Right? We have amazing infrastructure now, and infrastructure is expanding, but now it's the time to also create a unification to allow dApp builders, to allow builders who are creating services for the general community to be able to go out there and do that.
Because one thing that you also touched upon is that we're seeing so many new layer ones being launched, so many scaling solutions who is faster, more secure, more decentralized. It's time to really start building and foster this technology and start building apps that's going to be used by millions of users, and that our grandmothers and mothers can use without knowing, or my uncle can use, without him knowing that it's running on a decentralized.
I think that will be the sign of ultimate success.
Exactly.
That somebody is using a service they don't even know or don't even care is at the root layer on infrastructure of Polkadot, because the service is useful, the service is interesting to them, and our in-laws, our mother-in-law, our uncles, our siblings who are not technical, whoever it is, are just using it because it works and it's good for them. I think that's the place we want to strive to get to. Any other kind of closing thoughts for us in this moment, in this time, things you want people to know? How can they get started using it?
Just go on Apple.io. I mean, go through the registration process, set up your profile, and ready to go, basically. To use Polkadot services.
How hard is the registration process? A couple of clicks.
Name,
I don't know if people can do a couple of clicks.
Favorite pet.
Favorite
color.
pet. Oh, that's important. That's right. That's my favorite color. I kind of like green because it's part of my last name. So I have to hold on to green. What about you, Matias?
I'll go with black.
Black. That's very Polkadot. Or it's very parody, actually. Polkadot, we're in the pink spectrum, which I love. It's nice to have like a bright color. Yeah. What's your dinner plans tonight?
Something Italian. Right?
Something Italian, obviously. Maybe like a penne. Although penne's kind of like, in my opinion, less exciting. Pasta options. Rigatoni.
I think we are right now in a very nice place in Denmark, in this footprint area. Which
Yes.
is like this meat district.
Tons of
so
stuff happening around here.
I've seen some nice briskets over there being cooked in this moment. So,
Yeah.
I think
You want
something
some
light,
biscuit.
something light.
Something very light to help you go to sleep early tonight. Well, Matias, thank you so much for joining us. You can find out more about Apollon by going to apollon.io. Apollon.io. Don't forget about that. Registration only requires your favorite pet, apparently, or your favorite color. And if you're interested in the proposal, all 51 pages, you can find it online, on chain, and read the proposal. Participate in the conversation. And I hope you continue joining us for other fascinating conversations here in the live stream, but also in all the live streams that are happening across Decoded for the rest of today and in tomorrow. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good rest of the day. Bye.
you.